let's practice a little more with loops. In your Intro to JS Chapter 3 folder, there should be a file called Pretest Practice and Post-Test Practice. Let's go ahead and open those files up. Initially, I had thought to have you do these as one of your independent projects, but loops can often be a little bit complicated, and I want to make sure you have a firm grasp on them. Okay, so for the pretest practice, in this assignment, I want us to use a pretest loop that asks the user for a number, and then the loop counts down, starting with the number that the user entered, and goes all the way. You can make it go to 1 or you make it go to 0. I think we'll just go to 1. So we don't want to continuously ask the user for a number. We really only need that value one time, so that's not going to be part of our loop. Let's just call this num. And just to get in the habit, I'm going to parse this as an int. And ask the user to enter a number. This number that the user enters, we can use as our counter variable in this particular loop. So we don't need another variable. We don't need I or anything like that. Okay, so for a pretest loop, do you remember the syntax? If you said while, you are correct. Pretest loops start with the keyword while, and then we need some kind of test condition, a set of curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets, this will be our code that we want to do. Okay, so how can we come up with some kind of condition that will allow us to loop how many ever times the number entered, how many ever times the number is that the user entered? Okay, well, how about we take the value of num and say as long as it's greater than 0, we'll print the number to the screen. So we'll do a document.write. And the value of the number, since that's a variable, no quotation marks. But I'm going to put a space in there just to have a little separation on our screen. That's the code that we want the loop to do every time the loop iterates. But if we don't change anything about the test condition, then we're in trouble. And we wanted to count down with this particular project, so why don't we use a decrement operator instead of an increment? So remember last time we used plus plus, this time we'll do minus minus, so that 1 is subtracted from the value of num every time this code is executed. Okay? This is it. It's not too bad, is it? So let's test it in the browser and see what happens. I'll refresh the page, enter a number, let's say 9. And then it prints 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If I entered an even larger number, oh, that's going to take a really long time to complete. It may not even complete it. Let's try a number not that large. Let's do 256. There we go. And then let's just try something simple like a 3. 3, 2, 1. So we can go over the logic of the loop. If the user enters 3, number has a value of 3. So 3 is greater than 0. This statement writes 3 to the page, and then it subtracts 1 from 3. So now number has a value of 2. 2 is greater than 0. It writes 2 on the screen and then subtracts 1 from 2. Num now has a value of 1. 1 is greater than 0. It writes 1 to the screen and then it subtracts 1 from number. Now number has a value of 0. While 0 is greater than 0 is false, so the loop stops and this appears on the page. All right, let's practice with a post-test loop. In post-test practice.html in your folder, and this one I have a really hard time writing these instructions. We want to prompt the user for their name and a number. We're going to have the user's name appear on the page how many ever times is equal to the number that they entered in the prompt. But if the user enters 0, in the prompt, their name appears at least once. This lends itself to the post-test loop because in a post-test loop, remember, it always iterates at least one time. So in this case, we can have their name printed at least one time, even if they entered 0. But if they enter a large number, it prints the name that many times. We'll need 2 prompts for this code. So let's ask the user for their name. And let's ask the user for a number. In this case, remember, we want to use a post-test loop. So the syntax for a post-test loop is the keyword do, a set of curly brackets, the keyword while, and a test condition. Okay, so what do we want to do in this loop? We want to print name. And again, I'm concatenating with a space so that it's not all smushed together. And we know that we need to change something about our test condition, but we don't have our test condition written yet. So let's think about what we could do with this test condition. So if the user enters 3, we want the name to appear 3 times. If they enter 5, we want their name to appear 5 times. What could be a test condition for that? How about this? While num is greater than 0, okay, and we want to change something about our test condition, the easiest way for us to address that is with this variable num. And it's going to decrease every time this loop iterates, so we'll use a decrement operator, which will subtract 1 from num each time this loop iterates. Okay, let's try it out. I'll enter Mario and 148 times. Ooh, that's a lot of Marios. Let's do something a little smaller so we can see the logic. 3, oh, sorry, Mario 3 times. But if I enter Mario and 0 times, because that loop still had to iterate, it still iterated because it did not check the test condition until the end. Even though 0 is not greater than 0, it still performed this code. It still executed that code. All right, so if we enter 2, let's just follow the logic. It asks for the name, it asks for the number. If num has a value of 2 when we start this loop, it prints name, so it printed Mario 1 time, and it subtracted 1 from the value of num, which was 2. So now num has a value of 1. 1 is greater than 0, so it loops again. It prints name here. It subtracts 1 from the value of num, which is 1. So now num's new value is 0. 0 is not greater than 0. The loop stops and the code prints to the screen. Okay? Hopefully you're starting to get the swing of things with loops. I know it's confusing, and it's also, you're probably wondering, why are we doing this to print the same word over and over again? Oftentimes loops are used with iterable objects like arrays, and we haven't quite learned about arrays yet, and I don't want us to get there until next semester. So just try to get a firm grasp on those test conditions and understanding what the loops do right now.